and this is something that I tend to do too much. But Trey is he's an educator. He's an author, and close to my heart. You're an athlete, which we don't give up. And
you don't.
And Trey is a father. Trey's a father who loves his son and would do anything, whatever it takes, so that his son could reach his full potential. And that brought him to Faith Borkowsky. And with that, I'm gonna leave you to listen to this this really wonderful interview, and facts tell, stories sell.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marion.
Thanks so much. That was actually beautiful, Marion. You wrote so beautifully. Wow. I'm like overwhelmed by it. So Trey, so great to see you tonight.
Oh, thank you. You as well. Thank you.
I always see you in the background when I'm working with your son. So we have a weekly date, don't we?
We do.
But we never really just have a chance to talk about, reading in general and just how you came to this point. So I really want to start off with just an open-ended question. How did we connect? Let the audience know how we connected.
So first thing I would say is happy birthday to my mom. Today's her birthday.
Oh, happy birthday.
and I say that because I call her the literacy queen, so she always instilled in me that reading and writing and arithmetic, the 3 R's that they said years ago, right? But she always instilled literacy and read. So that brought me to, just the knowledge and the awareness of how important reading is. From there, the power of social media, right? I somehow got connected to your page and followed you and followed the post that you put, which was so, monumental to me. And I realized that you were stressing the importance of reading and literacy in a different way that I haven't, heard for quite some time, I think a lot of the things my mother did talk to me about years ago, but since then, things have changed, right? So I didn't hear about it. And as a parent now, I'm like, this doesn't add up. Why don't I know about this? And I'm very inquisitive to learn more. So, I commented on one of your posts about literacy. I spoke about Mr. Lit, it's the character that I created, just to get children engaged in literacy. And then I said, let's see how we can work together, because I want to learn more, and I know my son is struggling, not the worst, but I just felt he could be doing better. And you said, well, hey, I'm working with a nonprofit called Teach My Kid to Read, and they have an amazing mission. And we want to see if we can work together and see how we can help your son separately, but the mission makes sense because it all goes hand in hand. So that was the way I found you.
Yeah. And, you are an educator and you're from a family of educators. And I think it's important to note, as you said, that reading was a big part of your life. Your mother instilled the importance of reading. But when it comes to a child having a reading difficulty, you could surround your child with books. You could read to him every day. And that's no guarantee that he will become a reader. Mm-hmm. And I think that's such an important message to get out there, because many times parents are looked at in a different way if a child has a reading problem, as if it's your fault that the child is not reading. And I think in working together, and you noticed what I was doing with your son, that you're like, wow, this just makes so much sense to me. Mm-hmm. And why isn't it happening in school? Am I right? That was kind of
that's 1,000% correct. And, myself coming from an educator's family, but my father is also an activist. So he fights for what he believes in and instilled that in me as well. So as much as I know I wanted my son to learn this and benefit and get better, because you have to take care of your home first, but I was also taught to take care of everybody, right? So because of that, I said, well, why can't other children learn this way? You know, like this doesn't add up. Why isn't this happening to make sure? I mean, we met an hour a week with my son, and the progress, which we'll talk about, is some precedent. Like it's unbelievable. And it's not about because of the tutor, it's the practice that you put in place, as you say.
It's not about the tutor.
Meaning, no, not the tutor. No.
I'm kidding, Trey.
No,
You should
no,
know me
no,
already.
no. By all means, listen. Faith Borkowsky is the best literacy tutor probably on the planet right now. But I say that to say, you know, meaning like it's the practice. If the schools adopt what you believe in, what Teach My Kids to Read believes in, which now Mr. Lit EDU believes in and understands phonics, you know, phonemic awareness, the science of reading, you know, all these things that we'll talk about. This is easy. I mean, it really is. If it's done with fidelity, there's no question that everybody shouldn't have this.
Yeah. And, you know, you came up with the Mr. Lit character before we even met. So your heart was in reading. You had this vision to get reading across to everyone. And I read your book, and it's all about good values and neighborhood and really building up Black males and setting an example for Black males. And I love the message in the book. To me, it was just fabulous. And you did it in an engaging way. But you did that before you even knew about the science of reading.
So true.
And I think probably your impression was, well, if I just motivate kids, if I just kind of let them know the importance of it, that they will read. And that is a huge part. They need to see Black men reading. Kids need to see that it's important for Black men to read and enjoy reading. But what we're talking about tonight is there's a way to teach reading.
It is. And, you know, honestly, that that makes me emotional because I know how many people, you know, I was fortunate to go to school, play sports, but I know a lot of my friends' children, you know, who don't have these opportunities, and it completely altered their life. You know, the lack of having a strong foundation in literacy and you know, phonics and everything, as we're going to talk, you know, we'll speak about, it changed their life, you know, whether they were in the jail, you know, or the penitentiary, you know, in the prison system, school to prison pipe, like everything, you know. And as a school counselor, you know, the more I've learned about the child struggling in the classroom, which has those emotional outbursts, they're struggling because they usually cannot read and write. That's the number one issue, you know. And it just touches me because I just know how many people have been failed. They've just been failed. And as a Black male, you know, I have to stand up. I have to stand up, you know, and it's bigger than my son. Like I said, my father instilled that in me. It's about the greater good of everybody, but you have to find a story. And fortunately, it was my son's story. As much as I have my 2 degrees and everything my wife has, but our son struggled. You know, I mean, he said to me, Daddy, it was alphabet soup on the page before I started working with Miss Faith. That was his words, like in tears. I mean, I'm not here to be selfish with this. The world needs to know.
You know, and that's what you said to me, Trey. When I was working with you, it probably, we started in July. I spoke to you in June, but we started in July to work together. And by August, you were like, I'm sold. That's what you said, I'm sold. And because you saw, even in a month, it was a difference. And you said, I don't want to be selfish about this. I want this for everyone. And my heart, I have to tell you, it's beating now, because you and I have become friends. You know, this is more than just a working relationship. We've become, I think, good friends
I
through
agree.
this. And you send me articles and YouTubes and, everything. And I appreciate it all. I just love the connection that we have. And what strikes me as so important is your passion for people and your community. It goes beyond your family. You know, obviously your family is first, but you have this drive for community. And that's what Teach My Kid to Read is all about. It's about getting a community on board so we don't have kids who are not as fortunate as your son.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
Where they're, they don't have, a dad who could do what you do for your son, or a mom who does do what she does for her son. Even with best intentions, they just financially can't go out of the system.
Correct.
And, it's my passion to make this accessible to everybody.
That's it.
That's what we're looking to do. So getting back to your story, because I do want to get into it. When did you first start noticing that? And I'm saying your son because I don't know if you want me to say his name.
Oh, that's fine. The world knows, so it's okay. You can say
okay. I keep saying your son. So okay.
Yeah,
so when did you start noticing that Ernesto had some reading difficulties?
Honestly, and it's hard to say this because as an educator, you would think you would pick up on everything, right? But it doesn't happen like that.
No,
and sometimes myself as a busy person, constantly active and, I'm an adjunct at Villanova University and doing so many things, sometimes I get caught up in the right things, but the wrong moment, right? But because of COVID, even though it has the negative side to it, but the positive side was that my son was around me a lot more. So when it came to school and everything, I was listening and watching and seeing him do his work. And I said, something's not right, And I know I struggled with reading when I was a kid, And I said, this is not right. And, we could do more as parents. My wife and I will always say that, right? But there still is a foundational aspect that has to be in place no matter what. So when I noticed that through, the trial and tribulations of last spring, I was just like, how can I get help? My mom suggested some things as well. But when we went to that tutor, it didn't really catch on. That's why it is the tutor. Don't get it wrong. It still is the tutor. It still is the tutor.
All right. You saved yourself.
But like I said, it was the way in which they approach, when my son sometimes doesn't want to go to see Miss Faith on Friday, but he gets through it, right? And it's challenging, I mean, it's amazing. That's all I can say. And I thought about it through the last couple of weeks that early on, if not almost the entire time, right? Or I don't think at all, you've never used pictures. It was only words the entire time. So there was no way to guess, to try that. And when I think about that, like, the entire for 6-7 months, there wasn't a picture on any page of assignment that he did with you, nor any of the homework.
No, not necessary.
Not at all. Not at all. It's not even yes, there's going to be sooner or later you have to do association, right? What does this word look like, right? But we need to learn the sounds to the vowels, to the words, to the pictures. Not the pictures first. There's no way.
No.
And that just amazed me. And
yeah,
others have to get this. It's only right.
Well, it's interesting that you talk about how sometimes Ernesto didn't want to do this. And what kid wants to really do something that's hard? But he always felt, I think, by the end, that he accomplished something because we set high expectations for him.
From the beginning.
From the beginning.
From the beginning.
And I was like, no, you're going to do this.
Mm-hmm.
We are not settling for anything less than you're going to do this.
Mm-hmm.
As long as the practice is done, because that's what it is. It's a lot of practice, daily practice, because we're trying to change patterns.
I mean, honestly, I look at it like you rewired his brain, you know, and I say that all the time. Like it's a rewiring of an individual's brain, right? Because it's taking out the old practices and putting in a brand new way to think and read through words, you know. And I always say, like, when you thought about the 44 sounds of the alphabet, like I ask people all the time, like, how many sounds are in the alphabet? And most people can't even tell you. And that's how I know they weren't taught the right way to read. I just know it. Everybody can say, I know sight words, but that's memorization. That's not reading. That's not sounds. Like,
You can't grow.
You can't.
You reach a certain point and you'll read those words, perhaps, maybe, but you're not going to be able to read anything more. Where if you learn the sounds of language and you could show that which letters and letter combinations represent those sounds, well, the world opens up to you.
Completely.
Yeah. And as a matter of fact, one of the Zoom sessions with Ernesto, he read, I don't even remember which word it was, but just when we were starting the Zoom, he said,
it was participants.
Oh, yes. He said, is that the word participants? And it was
like,
wow.
Exactly. Like, wow. You know, it was, I mean, when he goes from basically maybe just knowing sight words, right? That's what I would say prior to starting with you.
Let's talk about his age. Sorry to interrupt.
Sure. He's 8 years old.
He's 8 years old, and he was at the end of second grade.
Yes.
When you realized, you said to me, could you just listen to my son read?
Yep.
That's how you started. And I said, well, I'll have to do a little bit more, right? And in listening to him read, I also wanted to see if he had what's called phonemic awareness. And that was the root cause of his difficulties. Being able to distinguish sounds and move sounds around. And it showed up in his spelling. And the reading, the only thing he could do was really read words that he remembered, that he recognized, but he couldn't sound anything out. So here we are, it's the summer before he started third grade. And then by Christmas time, he was reading multi-syllable words.
With only 1 hour a week of tutoring, plus the practice during the week, which is not much time, you know, just get through it and make it happen and, you know, just be consistent. But if you think about the amount of time that we have children in the school setting, there's no excuses. There's no, I mean, put it this way, like you just said, he can only read sight words that he had memorized before, to the point where he was learning about dinosaurs and can read. And then we all know those dinosaur names are crazy. And that's a perfect test, you know, Tyrannosaurus or all those crazy, right? It's like, you know, rhinoceros, he says all this. I'm just like, what is, but he gets it. And it's not daddy, you know, reading a word and telling him what it is. It's him reading through. And I always say to him, sound through the word.
Yeah.
Sound through the word. So, you know, when he can do things like that, I know there's been growth without having to, and it's just not everybody has to have that. Because at the end of the day, then his educational experience with his classmates is even more enjoyable because everybody is learning.
Now, your wife, her first language is not English.
Correct. Her first language was Spanish.
Okay. So this was something that I was curious about. And were you ever asked if this is an English language issue, as far as like a problem maybe where your wife spoke to him in Spanish? Did that ever come up in school?
Not really, honestly. It didn't. You know, there was times where people saw that, you know, or in school he did get a little extra help. They pulled him out of it, but you know, no knock on what they tried to do, right? But I am big on results. The results are totally different from what I saw with you, right? And it's proof, you know, because we haven't been doing even a whole year. You know, we're almost at our end, right? It's amazing. Like, and it's to the point where he, like you said, struggles sometimes to want to do Miss Faith, you know, her hour session, to now he's sad that it's over.
Yeah.
And that's what you want. That's where you know the growth it's happened. You know, and you said it. You know when it will happen. You said it. And
right, because they're going to pick up books and they're going to be able to look at words differently. Now, not every kid is going to love reading. That's the truth. We would hope that they would love to read. Not every kid's going to love it, but every kid to survive in this world must read.
Must.
Correct? I mean, in order to succeed in life, you have to have just some degree of skill to read.
Everything. I mean, that's everything. That's the foundation of this society, right? I mean, they say, you know, it was illegal for blacks to read. That's another reason why it's important to me, to make sure that, you know, children of color can read. And, you know, if you think about food, right? We want to be healthy, but if we can't read what's on these ingredients, or we can't, there's no way, right? It's just no way. Or if somebody gives you a receipt for items you purchased, but you can't really read it, you're going to pay anything. So it's the foundation of this society, and you know, it's
You've
right.
given me an article to read, and it was from a local paper, I guess, Philly's 7th Ward. Was it an online or a newspaper?
I believe it's an online like blog.
You gave me the link online, but I didn't know if it was a hard copy.
Yeah, I don't think it's
Philly's
a hard copy.
7th Ward, and the person behind this publication is Sharif El-Mekki.
Oh, he's the man.
All right, but the article was written by someone by the name of Lindsay Turk. And it was called, It's Okay to Be Illiterate as Long as You Are Woke. That was the article you gave me. And I was like, whoa, this article was amazing. And the writer talked about how she entered into an urban-focused program. That's what it was called, an urban-focused program. And she went into this program because she taught 11th grade chemistry, and these kids couldn't read or write a few sentences. And yet she was charged with teaching them chemistry. So she thought, okay, maybe if I learned a bit about reading by entering this program, it would help her to teach. So she wrote, I don't remember ever reading about or learning about literacy at all. This was in this urban-focused program. And then she wrote, I'd say the #1 job of schools and teachers need to teach kids how to read. That should not be up for debate.
I 100% agree.
So now let me ask you something about a program that's urban focused. How do you have an urban focused program that does not include literacy or does not put that up to the top of the heap to address?
Because I think sometimes or often our children are judged by their behavior, right? So we're worried about behavior instead of literacy, you know, and that's usually like the social and emotional, which we all know social and emotional learning as a counselor is forefront. However, if we don't attack, and I say attack because it's almost like it's a pandemic, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
The literacy rates are so low, and you know, the average, it's so bad, right? And this is a necessity. You know, reading is a necessity in everything you do in life. So I think people are so quick to worry about other things instead of getting to that, you know. And that's as a counselor, often when children come into my office because maybe they're struggling behaviorally, you know, I'll sit down and maybe pull out a piece of paper and have them read. And this is before I knew what I know now, but I would have them like read and say, listen, we got to get back to class because you're struggling here, right? And that sometimes was a aha moment, but I couldn't give them anything, right? So it was challenging them to say we got to do better, but I didn't give them a skill to go back to class with to be even better, you know? And that's why I feel like I just think people are more concerned about the behaviors sometimes instead of the literacy.
It's like, which came first, the chicken or the egg?
Yes. And literacy, I mean, no matter what, we always say when a baby is born and it starts, you know, growing in that first year, the first thing everybody always says was, what was the child's first sound? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right? So it goes back to everything you're teaching. We don't say what was the first
language, right?
Correct. We don't say what was the first word. It was dada or it was mama, right? Which goes into everything you teach. So if that happens naturally with nature, the first sound, why aren't we doing that in the school?
Starting with speech and language, and then from speech, we start to look at print and how print connects to speech.
Yep.
And it doesn't happen that way. You know, it's interesting. You also told me that you shared a video with me, the Kareem Weaver video, which blew me away, completely blew me away, about curriculum and, you know, the choices that are made in schools for reading programs. And when you shared that video with somebody, I think in your school, she said, I don't remember ever hearing anyone make a decision using data to guide the choices.
Well, yeah, like, you know, from their experience, they said, you know, I've been here for, you know, 20 some years, you know, and it's not that they didn't feel that the district didn't choose what they appear to be good curriculum. It was just like saying, what was the data of proof that this curriculum worked and working with Black and brown children, right? Like that was what Kareem said so well. It says, it's not that, you know, we're against using any type of curriculum, but we are, right? If you test it in one area and that's the data showing that it works there, but it's not really working in this area, why are we using it? Like, that's not, you know, what is going on, you know, like.
Well, let me let you in on a little secret. So, and I know you know the secret because we've talked so often. So yeah, it's not working in those other areas either. It's just that people have the means to go elsewhere and to pay for what they're not getting in the public schools.
Well, what you taught me, you know, and I believe this wholeheartedly because I come from a community and I live in one. But you said, if there isn't a tutoring service, right, in the community that children can go to, and an education advocacy group in that community, you said you would guarantee that there is struggling readers and literacy challenges within that area, you know, because if people can't go out and get a tutor and get help outside of the building as they do in affluent areas, right, there's no way those children are going to grow. And when you say, I was like, okay. So then I did a poll and I asked people, like, when your child struggles in school, you know, what do you do to get help? And they said,
you wait for the school to do something.
That was it. Or we asked the older sibling to try to help a younger sibling. That's not right.
No, but I could tell you, I'm on Long Island, And it's quite segregated here. It really is. It's just, you know, you come here and you will see it's a very segregated area. In my neighborhood, there could be a half a dozen tutoring centers, and then there are private people who also do this. There is no shortage of tutors.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's not, you know, go ahead.
I was gonna say there's none. There's like outside of our school, like, you know, I don't know, Sylvan Learning Center, any of those type of. There's one in the outskirts of our community, right? Like Kuman, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
But 75% of the children for our area live in the city or the borough of Norristown, right? Or the municipality as they call it now. And to have, you know, individuals who need to be able to walk to places and get to it, you know, in different means of transportation at the palm of their hand, it's not there.
No.
It's not. Just factually, not calling nothing, just calling what it is. It's just,
it is what it is.
It's not there.
And, you know, these franchises are only going to open tutoring centers if people will go to them, right?
Yep.
So, and if they're opening up in certain areas, there's a need.
Yep.
So clearly in areas that are more affluent areas, there's a need.
There's a need.
So it doesn't mean that the schools are doing it all.
Correct.
And yet curricula is chosen based on what some of these affluent communities are using. Isn't that right?
So Kareem Weaver, his video tells it, it's one of the best. I mean, people need to watch it. That
Yes.
video there, I mean, they brought in curriculum experts to help, you know, hold everybody accountable to make sure the children are receiving the best. And they broke things down. It was just like, it's just not happening.
But now here's something interesting. So just today, of course, it just comes up. Everything just comes up when it's meant to come up, right?
It is.
It's meant to be.
Meant to be.
So I got this email today, and I'm really not kidding. So I took a picture of it, and it says, Reimagining Education. Reimagining Education for a Racially Just Society Advanced Certificate Program. It's a 10-credit program, graduate program, offered by Columbia University. And what makes me laugh is, Trey, Columbia University also is the home, the epicenter of Teachers College Reading and Writing Program. And so I just found this so interesting. So here are the key takeaways from this graduate program.
Mm-hmm.
Become an agent of change in reducing racial disparities within our educational system. So I saw that bullet and I said, very interesting. They're so interested in reducing racial disparities, but they have a program in their school that widens the gap for kids all over the world.
All over the world. Yep.
And so, come on.
Yep.
Come on.
Yeah, and
So yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and in today's world, you know, people need to stop, you know, and I'll say this as respectfully as I can, but people need to stop BSing people, right? We're in a knowledge-based economy, right? Where you can find almost anything out here in today's society with the power of the internet, right? So when things are wrong, you need to just correct them. Don't try to BS people and figure out I can pull the sheet over their eyes anymore. It's just not going to happen. I mean,
No.
Things are out here. The Kareem Weaver video had maybe 100 views. You know, I said, hey, this thing's really good. Check this out. You say it's the world, and now it's like, you know, almost 3,000, right?
Yeah, well, you know what? I thought it was amazing. And
It's amazing.
I put that out there. Don't you think it was being shared all over the place after
Of course.
that?
Of course. Of
But
course.
that's what we need. We need to get this message out there. Mm-hmm. And so I'm so glad that we've been working together, and it makes me so happy that you see the proof is in the pudding. You know, you saw with your own eyes the difference in your son. So it's a lot different from me just saying, oh, yes, you know, I know something that can help you, but you saw it with your own eyes. So, you know, we need to get this out there. And I think the goal really is to get parents knowledgeable before kids start school. That's what we're trying to do, trying to get parents to know early on, whether it's through a pediatrician, whether it's through the barbershop, whether it's through a church, wherever people go, people need to know this before their kids enter school, so that when they see that picture nonsense going on from the beginning, where they start with memorize a list of 20 sight words and use a picture and guess the word, that they could advocate for their own children.
So true. And I want parents to know, people who are listening tonight, don't think you need to have degrees and all. Like, this is the foundational learning, which they'll probably learn, because I learned stuff through this. You know, as a master degree holder, I even learned things through this 7-month process with my son, right? But I want parents to know that the things that you teach are foundational things that will help them, but also they can help their children. Like, it's not something that you have to have, you know, a bachelor's degree, or this is basic foundational things that they can go through with their children on a daily basis at home. And when they master it, then it's like sound through stuff, right? Sound through. Like, it's just, I mean, we're in the barbershop one time, and I was trying to explain to the guys about this. My son was with me, you know, and I said, Ernesto, I said, what are the sounds of the word stop, right? The guy said, what? I said, no, not the syllable. It's a one syllable. I said, well, what are the sounds? And he said, and they were like, what is this? Everybody was like, what is going on? You know, but it was the practice. He knew how to do it. He said, it's 4 sounds, Dad. That's how you, and he read through it. And everybody, they were sold. And like, what is this? How can I learn this for my children?
Instead of just looking at a sign, stop.
Stop.
He understood.
He understood. He understood. He knew how to read through the word. And it's just.
Yeah. You know, it's so funny when you said you don't need a degree for this as a parent. You don't need a degree for this. And this is why I think, you know, we call it the science of reading. I'm sure you heard that term, the science of reading, reading science. Yes, it's a science, but I'm going to use my husband right now. And now I use the term too. He says, Faith, stop with the science of reading. It's common sense. And I'm like, you're right.
Yes.
Common sense. It's a common sense way of looking at words. If we speak, we could read.
Yes.
If we could read, we could write.
Yes.
It's all about, you know, just that the print reflects our speech.
Yes. And that's where parents, you know, have to think when their child was, you know, growing, as I said, from an infant, and they're saying, what was the first sound? They have to remember that when a kid goes to school. Do you teach sounds to the children in this preschool or in this kid? Do you teach sounds? Like, ask that question. Do you teach the sound? Because that's the only way that they're, as well as reading your book, which I think you should definitely promote, you know, show them your book tonight, honestly, because people need to see that, right? But if they learn this vocabulary to ask those questions for those education entities, it will make a world of a difference. And they'll know, well, honestly, I'm taking my child out of this daycare unless you all change, because it's the foundation for your child's life. I mean, it's nothing to play with. This is not like one of those, well, okay, it's okay if you don't learn that. No, it's not. It is not right. It's not right. It must happen. It must change.
Right. And just what you said, I'm not going to put my kid in that daycare or preschool if that's what they're doing, right? Where, you know, I'll go somewhere else where they do it correctly. But that's what parents need to know. But thank you for mentioning my books. But I wanted this to be about you, not
That's
about
fine, but
me.
hey, it's important.
But you know, to wrap everything up, are there any last words you want to let people know who are listening? Just last thoughts.
I just want people to know that myself as an educator, I am humble enough to say, you know, as you listen to my story tonight, that my son struggled with reading. And with the proper interventions, it changed. And I say, as your husband says, the common sense way to teach reading. It changed my son's life. I mean, the confidence that he displays, you know, being able to read stuff, even on video games. And people might think it's, but it makes a world of a difference when it's reading through his, you know, these little words that come on the screen. Now he can read and understand and how to navigate through stuff. I mean, it just makes a world of a difference. And honestly, I felt to some degree, I failed as a parent, you know?
But you didn't.
So, but I didn't. And I didn't. And I realized that in the overall. So I just want people to really understand that don't be embarrassed, you know, ask for help, but challenge to make sure that your child or children are learning about phonemic awareness, common sense way, as you said, right, to learn how to read using the sounds to the words, then to the, don't worry about those pictures, get to the sounds and those words, and then the vowels and how everything you teach, the CVC. I mean, it's so easy once you learn it, but
Once
you gotta
know it.
you gotta know it, you know. So, and when we know better, we do better, right? It's no way to go. I would never teach a child another. I don't. And right before I met you, I was saying survival words as sight. Right? Remember I told you I would never say sight words again, ever again. I would never say sight words. They make no sense.
Well, look, I'm so happy that we had this chance to share your story because, like I said, I think it's important for a father, I don't care what color you are, for men to be involved. I'm very big on father figures getting up and talking about this, because most of the time we think, well, it should be the mom who handles this. But I do think that it's very, very important if there is a man at home to be able to set an example that reading is important. And you took it a step further. You and your wife were helping your son as a team. Mm-hmm. And that's ideal if it could happen. And you are a role model, Trey, in every sense of the word. And I'm proud to call you my friend.
Thank you.
Really.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure speaking with you tonight.
Thank you.
And I'm glad we're doing this to teach my kid to read.
I'm excited. I'm excited for the partnership, you know, and I think we have some amazing things in store for the future that people will really be happy about.
Great. All right, so I guess Marion's going to come back on, is she? Or maybe not. Well, so. Oh, there she is.
I don't see myself. I didn't plan to, but if you can see me, I'm here. So
yes.
This was just so informative, and you really provided some just great context for a lot of parents who are in similar places in their journey, or a lot of reinforcement for parents who are even further along and just determined to help more parents see what they need to know early on. And the both of you just really are spreading information, and you're sharing stories and spreading information about curricula and instruction and what everyone really has to know. So this was so good, and we're regular people, like you said. You don't need a master's or a PhD. Anybody can learn these skills, and that's what we all want early when it counts, and to get the kids when they are struggling, to be able to get them the right help and not waste time floundering. And we've got, you know, we've got a long way to go, and these stories are so important to keep telling. So thank you both. This was wonderful. And I'll be back on Friday with an author chat for Decodable Books and literacy resources with Heather Doolittle, another parent who has a story and wrote some wonderful resources. So we're excited about all the live events we have coming up.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you.
so much. Good night,
Thank you.
Trey.
Take care. Thank you.
Thank you.